Hey guys, Richard from BlueSheepdog.com, and today I'm talking about the M&P line of pistols from Smith & Wesson. I've got the M&P9 here, which is the 9mm full-sized kind of duty-sized pistol. And this one actually is my own personal firearm. This isn't a T&E gun that the company has sent. This is the one that I own and I enjoy. I carry this actually, even though it's a full-size gun, I carry this concealed, and I enjoy getting out to the range and shooting it. In fact, it's my primary home defense pistol at the moment. The M&P, like a lot of its modern contemporaries, has a polymer frame. It's striker fired. In other words, there's no external hammer, and trigger pull is consistent from shot to shot. There's a number of things that set the M&P apart from its contemporaries, though. First of all, it does have the interchangeable palm swell grips here. And there are 3 grips that come with it. The one I have on here is actually the small. Some folks may say I suffer from stubby finger syndrome, which may or may not be the case. The fact of the matter is with a small palm swell grip on there, I'm able to properly adjust the trigger. There are the medium size, which is what normally comes on there, and then there's also the large size. I've had a lot of different people take this pistol out and shoot it. It's surprising to me how many people really like the small size, even people with much larger hands than myself. Medium is also the other popular choice. Very few people ever actually move into the large and are happy with it. So just something to kind of think about. But the small, like I've got on here, fits my hand perfectly, aligns the bones in my forearm perfectly, locks the wrist and everything, gives me perfect placement on the trigger with my finger. So that's the first thing that I think really makes this a superior weapon for law enforcement. Fact is there's a lot of departments that don't allow officers to purchase and carry their own firearms. Plus or minus, good or bad, you know, you can make an argument that that is either a good or a bad idea. But a lot of departments do, I think it's about 2/3 of the agencies that are out there, do actually issue a standard size duty weapon. Well, if you're issuing one weapon out to people and you are hiring all sorts of different sized people, that's going to create a problem because only, what, 1/3 of the people maybe half the people are going to fit properly into any particular size duty firearm. So by having these interchangeable grips back here, you can set the firearm up to better match the officer. That way small statured officers, large statured officers, and then the average cop, everybody can use the same firearm, but it's going to be a little better fitted to them. And when you have that better fitting, you're going to have better accuracy, both out on the range and on the street. Trigger control, and to a lesser extent, how the finger is actually placed on the trigger, that's going to have a great deal to do with accuracy. If you are watching your sights and you've got good trigger control, chances are all the other fundamentals of shooting you can totally throw out the window. But if you're aligning your sights, you got a good sight picture, you're using your sights, and you're pressing the trigger properly, chances are you're going to be putting those rounds right where they need to be. So if you have a gun that fits the hand good, they're going to be able to get on that trigger better. It's going to inspire more confidence in the officers. It's going to make firearms training less traumatic for them because they're going to be shooting better. And with that increased confidence and with that better fit, they're going to want to shoot more and they're going to pay attention more when they're out there on the range. It's not going to be a negative experience and they're going to do a lot more learning. So just fitting the gun to the hand like you can with the M&P, you're going to get better shooting officers. You're going to have a lot of officers that have much more positive experience in their training. So that's the palm swell grips. That's one of the things that set it apart. Another thing that sets this again apart from a lot of the others that are out there is staying with the idea of being able to fit it to the officers, is it has a ambidextrous slide release or slide catch on there. Pull the magazine out. But you can see on here that the slide stop, or the slide release, whatever you want to call it, is on both sides. So I'm right-handed, so I can address that easily with my thumb, or I can reach over and even hit it with my index finger. Now left-handed people, If they want to hit it with their thumb, they can do that as well. Okay, real easy because it's already set up ambidextrous. Now you'll notice that the magazine release is only on one side. However, it is reversible. And changing out which side it's on is ridiculously easy. Somebody that's done it before probably can do it in 15, maybe 20 seconds. If you've never done it before, you could watch a YouTube video if you wanted to. Watch them do it in about a minute, and you do it in about a minute. So even for the complete novice, it is dead simple to swap out. There's one little spring in there that you just move out of the way. You push this through, slide it in the other side, snap the spring back into place, and you're done. Just like that, you've reversed your magazine catch. Okay, so that's another thing that sets this apart. Again, the idea is you're matching the gun to the officer, not trying to get an officer to match themselves to a hunk of metal, right? If we can get our officers comfortable with their firearms, they're going to do much better with their accuracy and their deployment of these weapons. Something else that sets this apart is inside here, even though this is a polymer frame, inside there's actually a stainless steel chassis. Now that stainless steel chassis is going to actually make this a little bit more of a rigid platform. Now other polymer guns, they don't all have an internal chassis like that. There is some benefit to having a polymer gun in that under recoil there is some amount of flex. And that little bit of flex actually helps absorb some of the recoil. So that's good. The problem is, however, if you have too much flex, then you're actually going to reduce reliability. You're going to have the opportunity, because it's flexing too much, to induce errors. Now the Glock, don't get me wrong, I love the Glock pistols, I own several and have carried several on duty. But the third generation Glock pistols, they had a number of problems, specifically with the .40 caliber round, that just there were certain ammunition loads, certain departments were having just awful reliability issues with them. A lot of times they had white lights mounted up here on the forward rails. And with certain ammunition combinations, it was almost like clockwork how regularly these things would malfunction. Now, Glock never came out and said it was this or it was that, but there was a lot of speculation, and I think there's probably some validity to it, that the frame, the original Glock 17 frame, which was designed for a 9mm, was the same frame essentially that was used for the .40 caliber, the higher pressure .40 Smith & Wesson round that came out later. And there's a lot of speculation that when you put that higher pressure cartridge into the frame that was designed for the lower pressure 9mm, that there may have been too much flex. And that if you had the right combination of bullet weight and pressure, and perhaps even adding a light out here on the rail, it was adding maybe too much flex, and that was causing the reliability issues. Can't say for sure if that's true or not, but I can say that Smith & Wesson has a stainless steel chassis in here. There's still some flex, obviously, but that chassis adds more rigidity to the system. So even if you're shooting like a super high pressure round like the 357 SIG out of here, you're not getting too much flex that's going to induce any reliability issues. Now, there's a few other things about this that make it really good. Again, kind of trying to match with officers in the needs of not just the officers but the department. These are available in a wide range of options. Now, in my particular Smith & Wesson here, the only option really that I have is it does have a magazine disconnect safety. In other words, if the magazine is in it, it'll fire. If I remove the magazine, it's cocked, right? It's ready to go. But if I remove the magazine, I press the trigger, no click. Now there's some argument on both sides, and both sides have some validity on whether or not that's a good feature. First side says, well, you don't want that, because what if in the middle of a magazine change, you've dropped a magazine, you're reaching down, you're getting ready to pull out a second magazine, a threat presents itself. Before you can insert your new magazine, that one round that's in there you want to be able to put on target. That's good, but realistically, Most officers, when they get into a shooting, if they change magazines, most of the time it's because their slide is locked back. They're completely out of ammunition. So when they're swapping magazines, before they bring something up, they don't have anything in here to begin with. Okay? Also, if the officer is doing some type of tactical reload, they've fired a few shots, they're still in combat, they don't know how many they've got left in the magazine, so they pull one out, stick it in their pocket, and they're getting ready to slam a new one in there. Not only is it really uncommon for officers to do that in these types of situations, in combat situations, because we don't train to do that, but the odds of, at that specific moment, needing that one round, pretty astronomical. And I'll be honest with you, I've done a lot of searching and I cannot find a single incident where an officer has used that one round in just that specific scenario. Now, is it possible? Absolutely it's possible. Is it probable? No, it's not probable whatsoever. What I can show you, though, and I can show you this case after case after case, I can show you this cases all the way back to when the Florida Highway Patrol originally adopted the Beretta pistol. I believe it was the Beretta 96 back 1990-ish, 91, somewhere back in there. The Highway Patrol adopted the Beretta, and one of the things that they wanted is that they had to have a magazine disconnect safety. And they wanted it specifically for the reasons why I've seen it used multiple times since then, and that is for a gun grab incident. If I'm in a situation where I'm fighting over a suspect with my firearm, they've either taken it out of my holster, I've had it on them, somebody's blindsided me while I've got my pistol pointed at somebody else, whatever the case may be, I am now fighting for control of my firearm. And I'm losing control, which is a possibility. It's very possible for me, especially if I've been surprised, or if I'm already been fighting with somebody for a little while, it's possible for them to get leverage and start to peel that pistol out of my hand. Well, if I have a magazine disconnect safety, I can just pop that magazine out, just hit that button, and when that magazine comes out, that gun's not going to fire. It doesn't matter if it's cocked or not. It will not fire. Now, is it likely that I'm going to get in that situation? No. But is it far more likely than the other situation of having that one round that I need to put on target while I'm in the middle of a tactical magazine change? Yeah, it's a lot more likely, a lot more probable. And I can show you multiple cases, including one just from a couple of days ago, where an officer struggling over his firearm was able to punch that out, and he was able to essentially render this gun ineffective. So, something to think about. But Smith & Wesson, you can get it with or without the magazine disconnect safety. I prefer mine with the safety. Another department, another officer may not want that safety on there. But that's the thing, you can get it either way. Something else you can also get on these is you can actually get large ambidextrous thumb safeties, manual safeties on the exterior of the firearm, sort of like a 1911. And they're actually large. Obviously, I don't have one on here, but they are large enough to activate very easily with the thumb. Okay, they work just like one off a 1911. Now, there's a lot of arguments for and against thumb safeties, right? And we're not going to rehash all of those here. I prefer not to have one, but there are numerous documented incidents where officers, again, in a gun grab situation, they're losing control of their firearm, or somebody grabs their gun, you know, they've been rendered unconscious for whatever reason, somebody takes their gun out of their holster, and they're trying to shoot the officer and cannot do so because the safety is on. So it's another option. Other options that exist, they've got different colored frames. You can get these like in like a dark earth brown, for example. You can get it black. They actually have some that are you know, dark earth brown with a black slide, some that are completely a dark earth brown. You also have some long slide versions, which the longer ones have a 5-inch barrel. That might be more appropriate for a tactical team. Certainly they're good for competition shooting anyway. You even have the, was Julie Goloski, but I guess now it's Julie Golob edition, which has actually a pink palm swell grip, with proceeds from those sales going towards fighting breast cancer. So there's a lot of different options in these. Plus, one of the other options that I have left out completely is caliber selection. You can get these in 9, 40, 357 SIG, and 45 ACP. Now the 940 and 357 SIG all sit in basically the same frame. The 45 ACP version, slightly larger because we're talking about a bullet that's nearly a ½ inch wide. All of the guns are normal capacity, as Smith & Wesson refers to them, but you can also get them low capacity. Normal capacity on this 9 is 17 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. The low capacity versions obviously are 10 rounds. You do 15 rounds in the 40 and 357 SIG, you do 12 rounds in the 45. There's also smaller versions of these, compact versions of these pistols that might be more appropriate for either backup carry or also for plainclothes details, your detectives, your investigators, what have you. Those are slightly smaller both in length and in height, but they still use the same magazines, or can use the same magazines. The magazines normally are shorter, but if you need to, you can use your full-size magazines in them. So that's a great choice, especially for backup out in patrol. If you need to pull off your vest, your backup gun, because this one's taken away, you're rolling around the mud, now it's jammed up, whatever the case may be, you can still stay in the fight with the same basic gun. It's still going to handle the same, it's still going to operate the same, and you can still go to your magazine pouches and use your full-size magazines. So it's a great option. Now, there's a couple other things about the M&P that I do want to highlight real quick. Typically, the sights are fixed, but they are dovetailed in, so they are drift adjustable. The ones I've got on here are just regular 3-dot sights, but you can also get them with tritium inserts for your night sights. There is an accessory rail right up on the front here that works very well. I've got a Streamlight TLR4, which is their newest version of their white light and laser combo, and just snaps right onto the accessory rail. With the Streamlight, all you got to do is just fasten it down, thumb tight. You can actually take a quarter, tighten it down more, but it fixes on there, and you can adjust, or you can instantly use it just using your finger, or you can use the thumb off your other side. But just like that, now suddenly the Smith & Wesson mates up with a great high quality light, and now you're great for any type of low light conditions. This one actually also uses a laser, or you can set it up to use a laser and the white light at the same time. Take it back off the same way you put it on, just loosen it up, and it comes right back off. So this is the M&P. This one's the 9. Like I said, it does come in other calibers and other sizes and everything. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the camera view, and I'm going to show you how this thing disassembles. It's really simple, and I think you're going to like it. Alright, here we have the M&P9. I'm getting ready to disassemble it, show you how easy that is, and show you what you need to do to clean it. Before I get into that, one thing I did forget to mention is 2 other models of the M&P line that are available that I think are absolutely fantastic for law enforcement. The first is the M&P22. The M&P22 is chambered for the .22 long rifle, a rimfire round that is very inexpensive to shoot, very low recoiling, and is perhaps one of the best handguns to use for teaching someone how to shoot or even correcting problems, because it is such a low recoiling, fun to shoot caliber. Now, the M&P22 is actually made for Smith & Wesson by Walther, but it has very identical or very similar dimensions. Dimensions are just slightly different in a couple of areas, but it has the same basic weight, almost exactly the same barrel length. The M&P22 does not have interchangeable palm swell grips. It has more of the medium-sized standard. But other than that, you'll see that the controls on there are all very similar. It does have an external safety, the thumb safety, that is missing on this M&P9. But if you get any of the other M&P9s that have the thumb safety, it would be the same type of thumb safety on there. So I think for law enforcement, that's a fantastic tool. It's going to be the same look and feel and same types of controls, but it gives the instructor the ability to keep someone on the range a little longer with less fatigue, certainly at a much lower cost. And if you're working on things such as trigger control, few things can beat using the 22 out on the range, because it's not going to be something that's going to add to flinching or anything else. So that's one of the other M&P models that are out there that I think really help distinguish this line from others. The other is the new Shield, the M&P Shield, which is a subcompact pistol available in 9 and 40 caliber. The Shield is probably one of the better guns on the market currently for both concealed carry and for backup duty for law enforcement. It's a single stack gun. It is slightly thinner than the rest of the M&P line, and certainly it's a little more compact. It does not, it looks a lot like the rest of the M&P line. Obviously it's smaller, but just like the M&P22, it does not have interchangeable palm swell grips. It has the same general look and feel, but just because of how thin they were trying to go for on the new pistol, they weren't able to add the interchangeable palm swell grips, just because to do so would have required making the overall package a little larger. But that's another option that's going to be exceptional for, like I said, backup, or if you are carrying off duty, or even if you are assigned to some type of investigative unit or specialty unit where you're in plain clothes. So I wanted to make sure I did mention those two. The Shield's going to be great, but I think that M&P22 is absolutely perfect for firearms instructors to help some of the new officers that have never shot before, have not done a lot of shooting, and also work with those officers that just have some issues they need to get worked out on the range. Fantastic guns. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this M&P9, and I'm going to go ahead and go through the basic field stripping, disassembly of it, and kind of show you how that works. Unlike some of the other pistols out there on the market that are striker fired, this one you do not have to pull the trigger to essentially decock it before you disassemble it. Smith & Wesson has a slightly different method of handling that. So just like anytime you're going to clean a firearm, you want to make sure that it is devoid of any ammunition. You pull the magazine out first, lock the slide to the rear. Once it's locked to the rear, you want to make sure that there's no ammunition anywhere in there, nothing in the chamber. You can visually inspect it, manually inspect it, okay? So we're good here. What Smith & Wesson has done, rather than dropping the slide, decocking, by pressing the trigger like you would like on a Glock, there's actually a small lever, and I'm not sure if this camera's going to be able to pick it up from the angle or not. There's a small little lever in there that you just lever down. Now usually I'll just use my pinky and flip that down. You can use a ballpoint pen, or there's actually a tool here in the back of the gun, here at the back of the magazine well, that holds the palm swell grips in. You can actually twist that, pull that out, and use it. We'll go over that in a minute, but what I normally do is I'll just either use like a handcuff key or a pinky, and you just lever that down. I just use my pinky and do that, okay? Once that's down, you'll see right up here in front, you've got a takedown lever. Just lever that 90 degrees down toward the ground. Once you do that, the gun is ready to come apart. Pull back and just slide it right off. It's really that easy. Once it comes off, you've got your frame assembly, then you've got your slide, your captive recoil spring, the barrel comes right out. And that essentially are your pieces. If you want to include the magazine, it breaks down essentially into 5 pieces for cleaning. Magazines are real easy to take apart. You'll see here there's a button on the bottom. You press that in, slide the base plate off just like you would virtually any other pistol magazine. The frame, there's nothing further to disassemble for normal cleaning. If you're swapping out the magazine release button like we talked about before, you could do so right from here. Again, I don't know if this camera is going to be able to pick it up or not, but there's just kind of a little rod sticking up that's actually a spring holding this magazine release button in place. You just lever that backwards, push it out, flip it around, and pop that spring back in. I'm telling you, 10-15 seconds and it's done. The internal stainless steel chassis for this pistol, you can't really see it here. It is embedded in the frame of the gun, kind of up in this area, so you can't really see it. What you can see, though, is you can see the ambidextrous slide stop here, or slide release, depending on what you want to call it. You can see that it's on both sides of the frame. You've got two bars that run up, and it's got a single pivot point up here. So when it locks in, you can just snap it down. That's essentially everything that you're going to see when you're just doing regular cleaning. You pull it apart, run your patches through there, get it nice and clean. This polymer is resistant to everything I have used for cleaning. I haven't gone out and gotten anything crazy on here, but all of your standard stuff, whether you're using some Safeties #9, some Shooter's Ridge, different types of things that are out there. Anything that commercially you can pick up, I'm fairly certain this polymer frame is going to be impervious to. Certainly it's held up well to everything I've dealt with. The captive recoil spring assembly here uses a flat spring, which is fairly typical in these polymer guns, but it also uses, you'll see, a metal guide rod. There are some pistols out there using a plastic or a polymer guide rod. Nothing wrong with those, I'm sure, but I do feel a little more comfortable with a metal one in here. It's not adding very much weight as compared to a plastic one. But when we're talking about a duty gun for police work, something that's both going to be out in the elements a lot, plus something that hopefully you should be training on a regular basis with, having that metal rod in there gives me a little bit extra comfort that it's going to last and it's going to be there working when I need it. Barrel, pretty standard. I believe I mentioned before it's a 4¼ inch barrel. Bells out slightly at the end. Just pretty standard stuff. And then of course you've got your slide assembly here. You'll see in here there's not a whole lot of crevices or nooks and crannies and things to clean. You get in here with a nylon brush and a few patches, a little bore cleaner or a Safeties #9, and it'll clean up very nicely. One thing I do want to point out about the slide here, and it's the same for the barrel, is it's all made out of stainless steel. Probably the slide is the heaviest thing in this entire gun. It is made of stainless steel, but this finish is a melanite finish. And melanite is a very corrosive resistant, it's a very hard finish. It's not unlike the Tenifer finish that you might find on a Glock. However, what I particularly like about the melanite is I think it has a much more visually appealing look to it, and this may sound kind of silly, but it feels much better. Tactily, just touching it, feeling it, it actually feels like a higher quality finish than some of the other options that are out there. It's not to say Tenifer or some of these other finishes aren't any good, because they are, but you're going to get the same or better amount of corrosion resistance out of this finish, same amount of hardness out of this finish, but it just looks and it feels much better to me. You can see here the stamp marks and everything are high quality. Smith & Wesson's printed fairly large on here. Some people like that, others don't. It doesn't really make much of a difference to me. But you've got the M&P logo and the traditional Smith & Wesson logo here, which I think both look exceptionally good on this slide. One of the other things that a lot of people notice is back here, these serrations. It's got kind of a scalloped serration to it, and I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but it provides excellent purchase. Even when your hands are sweaty or wet, you've got a little bit of oil on them, God forbid any blood or anything else. Those serrations actually do a real good job, gives your hand very good purchase for working that slide. So it's fantastic. You may also be able to see here how these sights are dovetailed in there. Pretty easy to replace if you want to throw on there an fiber optic sight or like an XS Big Dot or something like that. Pretty easy to do. Like I said that earlier, that my particular pistol here has just the regular 3-dot setup, but you can also get from the factory night sights on there. Cleaning, like I said, is pretty easy. Hit it with a nylon brush, some little cleaner, hoppies, whatever, and some patches. It cleans up nicely. On most of these pistols, if you apply just a little bit, you don't want to go crazy overboard. Apply a little bit of oil, good lubricant, to your frame rails here, inside here where the rails go and interact with your slide there, and then also on your contact points on your barrel. Those are the places that I apply just a little bit of oil. You don't want to go overboard. Having too much oil is going to invite a lot of grit and dirt in there, which can bind a gun up. Just like not having enough oil can cause problems as well, excessive wear. That's it. It's a pretty simple gun to work with. Reassembly, pretty easy. You just take the slide, take your barrel, set it back in there, take your recoil spring assembly, push it back in there, set it on there, and that's done. And then you just slide it right back onto the frame. And just like that, everything resets. Your lever pops up, and you're good to go. You can function check it, insert the magazine. It's obviously empty. There you go. So that's the Smith & Wesson M&P9 there. It has been an absolutely flawless performer for me. I thoroughly enjoy shooting the gun. But even more importantly, the whole point to this video is that I think this is the best law enforcement duty gun on the market today. It just offers so many different options to customize it to fit a particular officer. And those are standard. That's not going out and having to add a bunch of stuff to it. You can fit the size of the frame through the use of these interchangeable palm swell grips to the individual officer. You can swap around the magazine release, and then it also has the ambidextrous slide release there, or slide stop. It's just set up to work with a wide range of police officers. And I don't care if you're a department with 4 or 5 officers or you're a major metro agency with thousands of officers. The fact is you're going to have a lot of different officers with a lot of different size hands, some right-handed, some left-handed. You need to make sure that if your department is issuing a single firearm, that firearm works with the officers, not the officers are having to adapt to the gun. Show you one quick thing before I end this. Changing these palm swell grips out are easy. First of all, you want to make sure it's empty, right? We've already done that, but it is. Swapping these out, real easy. This little part that's sticking out beyond the magazine well, that's actually a tool. You just twist it 90 degrees. There you go. You pull it out. Yeah, there we go. Pull it out. And then this punch, actually, you can use it to disassemble different parts of the gun, or you can use this to flip down that little lever for taking it down. I just use my finger for that, but you can use this also to assist you with swapping out your magazine release. But once this is out, that rod actually serves to hold in your palm swell grip. And like I said, I use a small on mine. You can probably read that in there. It reads small. But if I want to put on a medium or a large, it's no problem. Once I take off whatever I have on there, you'll see that it's kind of almost a skeletonized section. Grab the new one. You'll notice there's like a little tab sticking out there. That tab is going to ride underneath here into that little slot. So you just stick it in there. It pivots into place. You can actually, if you're trying to fit an officer, have them feel it like that. And if you wanted to, you can actually shoot it like this. That's not going to be a problem. But once you find the size you want to go with the medium or you want to go with the large, I can just show you real quick. That's what the medium looks like. And pivot that back out. Put in the large. The large actually gives you a little bit, not only is it thicker through here, but it actually comes up a little higher in the back also. And that large really fills up the meat of the hand. Large is certainly too big for me. I'm just going to put that small back on there. Yeah, that fits good for me. So then I take this, I'm putting it in basically 90 degrees from where it's ultimately going to sit, push it in, twist it back into place, and now it's locked in there. It's not coming out. Once you get that in there, you're probably not going to change it. You know, for the duty gun, once the instructor and the officer get on the range, they find out what works best for that officer. You put it back into place, and you can take these, throw it in the box, and probably never even have to look at them again. If this is a personal gun, or maybe it's a gun that you're using to train other officers with, then you're going to probably be swapping that out a little bit. Because on a personal gun, maybe you're taking people to the range, you're introducing them to shooting, and so you want them to have the most comfortable grip possible. Certainly if you're an instructor and you're using this as a training gun, you want to make sure that whoever you're training has that proper fit to the hand. So there you go. It's a Smith & Wesson M&P. Like I said, I think it's a great gun for law enforcement duty use. Hopefully you understand why. I've been pretty clear, at least I hope, on my feelings on the subject. If you're watching this on YouTube, bounce over to our site, bluesheepdog.com, go to the firearms review section. You'll find the Smith & Wesson M&P9 there, and leave your comments if you want to interact with us there. Certainly you can leave your comments on YouTube as well. But I'm certainly eager to hear what other people think. I'm somebody that's carried SIGs and Glocks and Smith & Wesson handguns on duty to protect myself, protect others with. And for my money, and we're talking about my life, this is the pistol I want to carry on duty. Thanks, and stay safe.